prayer for blessing upon the tribes, which is Genesis 48 and 49. We're now going to dive into that. Okay, in 48, Jacob was nearing the end of his life, having been reunited with Joseph. Jacob met his new grandchildren and officially blessed them into the family. So that's what happens in chapter 48. Under this, you're going to see under the names of their brothers, which is verse 6. So if Joseph's boys were each considered sons of Israel in terms of inheritance, then you're probably going to ask, like, why the 12 tribes of Israel rather than 13, since Israel had 12 sons. So once the Israelites came to Canaan, the Levites, which were the priests and tabernacle workers, received no land. So the land was divided among 10 sons of Israel and 2 of his grandsons. So you have the 12 tribes, and then you have the 2 of his grandsons. So the Simeon tribe, if you remember, is later absorbed into the Judah tribe, and the Levi tribes were the priests and got no land. And Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, took the place of Simeon and Levi for inheritance. Hopefully that answers that question ahead of time. Anyway, we're going to dive into Jacob's blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh, which are his grandchildren. So in 48, we'll start with verse 1. Sometime after this, Joseph was told, "Your father is weaker." So he set out with his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. He said to me, 'I will make you fruitful and numerous. I will make many nations come from you, and I will give this land as a permanent possession to your future descendants. Your 2 sons born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are now mine.' So Ephraim and Manasseh belong to me just as Reuben and Simeon do. Children born to you after them will be yours and will be recorded under the names of their brothers with regard to their inheritance. When I was returning from Paddan, to my sorrow, Rachel divided among the way, some distance from Ephrath in the land of Canaan. I buried her there along the way of Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, 'Who are these?' And Joseph said to his father, 'They are my sons God has given me here.' So Israel said, 'Bring them to me, and I will bless them.' Now this eyesight was poor because of old age. He could hardly see. Joseph brought them to him, and he kissed and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, 'I never expected to see your face again, but now God has let me see your offspring.' Then Joseph took them from his father's knee and bowed with his face to the ground. So then go on to verse 13, where it shows like Ephraim's greater blessing that he receives. So then Joseph took them both with his right hand. Ephraim told Israel's left, and with his left hand Manasseh toward Israel's right, and brought them to Israel. But Israel stretched out his right hand and put it on the head of Ephraim, the younger, and crossing his hands, put his left on Manasseh's head, although Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph and said, so here's the blessing. It's in verse 16. The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed them from all harm, may he bless these boys, and may they be called by my name, the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow to be numerous within the land. Then on verse 17, when Joseph saw that his father had placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, he thought it was a mistake and took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh. So Joseph said to his father, "Not that way, my father. This one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He too will become a tribe, and he too will be great nevertheless. His younger brother will be greater than he, and his offspring will become a populous nation. So he blessed them that day, putting Ephraim before Manasseh, when he said, the nation Israel will invoke blessings by you, saying, my God, make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Israel said to Joseph, look, I am about to die, but God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your fathers. Over and above what I am giving your brothers, I am giving you the one mountain slope. The one mountain slope they're referring to is Shechem, which is a Canaanite town where Jacob had built an altar. Remember that back when we did Genesis 34. It's in verse 2. Anyway, I'm giving you the one mountain slope that I took from the Ammonites with my sword and my bow. Okay, now we move on to Genesis 49, where on his death that Jacob gathered all of his sons to his side one last time, and as part of that gathering, he gave a specific blessing to each son on that one that pointed forward to their futures and to their descendants. So we begin Genesis 49 with Jacob's last words. So then Jacob called his sons and said, gather around and I will tell you what will happen to you in the days to come, which is the last days. Come together and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to your father, Israel. So then for Reuben, he said, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength and the first fruits of my virility, excelling in prominence, excelling in power. What's interesting about this, anyway, we'll revisit that later. Just take note that Jacob literally blesses his sons by naming them and describing them. This entire chapter is filled of blessings, and it's one of the longest in the Bible. It's also a poem. One of the key things is that the names, the blessings that Jacob said over his sons, many of the traits that Jacob's mentioned, his descendants, the descendants of those sons then carried out those traits. You can see them displayed throughout history as history unfolds. Okay, then verse 4, turbulent as water, you will not excel because you got into your father's bed and you defiled it. He got into my bed. So Jacob cursed Reuben here. And you can see many of his descendants, Reuben's descendants, end up having the trait of indecision because of this cursing. Okay, then Simeon and Levi are brothers, and their knives are vicious weapons. May I never enter their council. May I never join their assembly. For in their anger they kill men, and on a whim they hamstring oxen. Their anger is cursed, for it is strong, and their fury, for it is cruel. I will disperse them throughout Jacob and scatter them throughout Israel. So here, again, Jacob cursed the anger of Simeon and Levi. So the trait that you see in these descendants of Simeon and Levi are like violence and revenge. So the Simeon tribe eventually joined the Judah tribe, and Levi tribe eventually were priests in many places. Then we continue on verse 8, which is the tribe of Judah. So the son of Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the necks of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. Judah is a young lion, my son. You return from the kill. He crouches, he lies down like a lion or a lioness. Who dares to rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, or the staff from between his feet, until he whose right it is to comes, and the obedience of the peoples belongs to him. He ties his donkey to a vine, and the colt of his donkey to the choice vine. He washes his clothes in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Now you can see from verses 8 to 13, where it discusses Judah, that Judah is the chosen tribe of God. So Jacob blesses Judah here, and King David and Jesus, they come from the line of Judah. Since through Judah, King David descended and Jesus was born. Judah was the brother who had begged Joseph for Benjamin's life. Keep that in mind. That's key. And since the tribe of Judah is often compared to a lion, Jesus, the descendant of Judah, he's the lion from the tribe of Judah. Get it? So back when we were saying in verse 10, the scepter will not depart from Judah or the staff from between his feet. This is a messianic prophecy. It speaks to the power, Jesus's power and future reign. One of the more interesting things is that the land of Judah, the territories that were named after the tribes, the land of Judah was a productive wine country. So when you go to verse 11 and it's talking about the choice wine, the clothed in wine and blood of grapes, it's talking about the land being full of abundance, general abundance. So if we continue on verse 13, we have Zebulun, which will live by the seashore, which is the Mediterranean, and will be a harbor for ships, and his territory will be next to Sidon. So here Jacob blesses Zebulun to deal with the marine kingdom, I'm guessing. Then you have Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between the saddlebags. So here Joseph blesses Issachar, so you understand the time, who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. Then you go in verse 15. He saw that his resting place was good and that the land was pleasant. So he leaned his shoulder to bear a load and became a forced laborer. Then you have on Dan, the son of Dan. Dan will judge his people. So Dan was for law and order as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the road, a viper beside the path that bites the horse's heels so that its riders fall backward. So here Jacob blesses Dan to be deceptive and cunning. That's essentially a trait, the trait of treachery, which you then see in his descendants. Then verse 18, I wait for your salvation, Lord. That's Jacob speaking. Then verse 19, Gad will be attacked by raiders, but he will attack their heels. Gad means attack. So here Jacob blesses Gad to be a warrior, since he settled on the east side of the Jordan River in an area for being easily attacked, but victorious when Gad is attacked by their attackers. Then verse 20, Asher's food will be rich, and he will produce royal delicacies. So here Jacob blesses his son Asher to have prosperity and good food. So Asher, his descendants settled in fertile section of North Canaan that grew olive trees and produced olive oil. Then verse 21, Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. So here Jacob blesses Naphtali to be carefree with kids because they have beautiful fawns. And the tribe of Naphtali, they settled in the hill country. So in verse 22, Joseph is a fruitful vine beside a spring. Its branches climb over the wall. The archers attacked him, shot at him, and were hostile toward him. Yet his bow remained steady, and his strong arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, by the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you, who with blessings of the heavens above, blessings of the deep that lies below, and blessings of the beast and the womb. The blessings of your father excel the blessings of your ancestors, and the bounty of the ancient hills. May they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the princes of his brothers. So here we see that Jacob blesses Joseph. And you can see that despite jealousy, lies, false accusations, whatever may come against Joseph, then his lineage was always victorious as long as they stay true to God and live with integrity. Even Joseph's daughters overcame obstacles while remaining focused with God's help and blessed with all blessings and children. So you remember that Joseph honored God and had authentic leadership with their values, behavior. All this was also visible with his descendants. As long as they stayed close to God, their leadership was authentic through, and it was witnessed through their self-discipline, their consistency, their relationships, through connectedness. They had a heart for compassion. They were passionate and purposeful. They had double blessings. They had wisdom, courage, patience. I mean, they had a lot of blessings. Then we move on to Benjamin, which is verse 27. Benjamin is a wolf. He tears his prey. In the morning, he devours the prey, and in the evening, he divides the plunder. So here, Jacob blesses Benjamin to be courageous. Wow. He blesses Benjamin to be courageous. And the trait they have is that they can be savage and have brutal actions. You saw this throughout his descendants. So, for example, Ehud and King Saul come from the Benjamin lineage. Anyway, on verse 28, then you have, these are the tribes of Israel, 12 in all, and this is what their father said to them. He blessed them, and he blessed each one with a suitable blessing. So Jacob's burial instructions are then mentioned in verse 28. Then he commanded them, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the fields of Ephron, the Hittite. The cave is in the fields of Machpelah near Mamre in the land of Canaan or Canaan. This is the field Abraham purchased from Ephron, the Hittite, as burial property. Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried there. Isaac and his wife Rebekah are buried there, and I buried Leah there. The field and the cave in it were purchased from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished giving charges to his son, he drew his feet into the bed, took his last breath, and gathered to his people. So here you can see that even though Jacob had settled in Goshen, his heritage was based on the promise God made to Abraham about his homeland. So even today, those things are still active. Okay, this concludes day 14. Come back for the next one.